Good morning, everybody. Welcome to an AM coffee. I am here with George Fontes, World Ablaze, which it continues to be. Uh,
Right.
how are you, sir?
Man, I'm good. Appreciate you having me on. I actually tune into your Sunday mornings, even though I'm on the West Coast, because I'm such an early bird. I can barely sleep half the time. So you're one of the few that are on live that I would listen to because I respect you, and we've chatted a few times. So I'm like, yeah, I'll tune in, and having the opportunity to be on the show with you this morning it works out great, and happy to be here, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in the field, but we'll do a proper video sit down next time.
Yeah, no worries. I'm good.
So tell me, what's on your mind? We were kind of just talking a little AI before we went
Yeah,
live.
I brought that up because I mean, you bring it when we've always conversated, you bring up AI and where things are going, and I had an interesting AI related experience when it came to um, the Google AI. So when you could do searches and it says go deep with AI, you have a little tab up there to the left. And the reason this happened is I just had a guest on yesterday. He's an intelligence analyst, and we're talking about many different topics. And while I'm trying to edit the show, I was like, oh, I think he changed his logo. So I was like, I just did a search for his new logo, downloaded it. I was going to put it into the video. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I see all these explanations about him and his podcast. And I was like, all right, well, let me go down this AI rabbit hole, see what it says, and see how accurate it is. So it gives a summary, and we're going through this whole thing. Me and AI are going back and forth. I'm clicking all the links. I'm like, all right, let me see what it says about me, because I was like, I've never done this before. And it had a summary that was pulled from my description, right? And there's these links that go deeper, and it starts to put me in this box or categorize me as someone who is pro-Israel, pro-war, wants to take over Gaza, and I support everything Trump does. Now, that being said, I lean right, so I am a bit conservative, but it doesn't mean I agree with everything Trump does. So I start clicking these links and go like, well, okay, it says for further information, click here on for example, what I feel about Trump's policy. What did I say about Hamas? What did I say about Gaza? And the more I go down this rabbit hole, it starts to literally frame me as a right wing, pro Israel, pro war, anti Palestine person. I'm like, wow. And so I finally go tell AI, I said, hey, this is George Fonts. I was like, where are you getting this information? And it's responding, well, based on things that you have said and posted and this and that. I'm like, huh. So I responded saying, well, you took everything I said out of context. I said, I still challenge where you got your information. And it eventually admitted to me, and it actually apologized and said, well, I got your information based on titles of my podcast and descriptions. And I was like, oh, so you're just gleaming like descriptions and titles and assuming that is everything that I am personally saying and standing behind.
It's
I,
taking
I
the
was like,
metadata and profiling.
yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. So when I saw this, I was like, well, how is that translating to people out there searching for like people like me or you or anybody? When you get this AI summary of you that is taken out of context and doesn't really relate to what you're actually saying or what you believe in. I thought I shared that because I was like, wow, that was eye opening.
Well,
The state of where we're at.
yeah, well, it's kind of like the algorithm as a whole, where it takes what you're looking at and feeds it to you because it feeds you more of it because it thinks that's your interest. So
Yeah.
if you're scrolling on TikTok and you stop too long on a video, it
Right.
assumes you like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no nuance there. So the idea that you are being judged based off of headlines is, I mean, obviously that is surface level. It's not going granular. It's not getting into the conversation. I would wonder, do you do transcriptions in your shows?
I think I think my host does it automatically. But I don't outright, click the link to do it or anything. Maybe I should. I don't know.
Oh, I'm just wondering if it would actually use that data. If
Hmm.
there was that much metadata, would that start to alter? Like, would it be nuanced enough to look at the conversation as a whole and make an opinion?
Yeah, you're right. And this also to me this also revealed the limitations because everybody thinks that AI is so advanced. Like everyone thinks, oh, they're listening, right? Um, that they are. That it's like listening to everything you're saying. Well, it's obviously not scanning podcast episodes or anything on YouTube and actually listening to the audio and then summarizing what is going on. It's just reading text right now. But I find it revealing because we can always be categorized or be surmised to be something we're not, which can actually hurt us out there in the world in terms of what we're trying to say and represent. So I thought you would find that interesting. I thought I'd share that with you because I was like, wow, I didn't know this is what they thought of me out there, as far as, Google or AI anyway. So that was very interesting.
It's the spread of information too fast because in the age of Nielsen ratings,
Yeah,
you were still generalized. A Nielsen
true.
box would categorize and put you in no pun intended, literally put you in a box, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
this is just it happening faster.
Right.
And there's no way to put Pandora back in the box, if you will. Like, I mean, I would like to think that if you did what we just discussed with the metadata, that would alter things. But I don't think they're going that deep, and I don't think they're going to waste compute power in the name of accuracy.
I agree. And this whole surface level view of who people are is really, I think, it's really hurting society, in my opinion, uh, because there's too much gleaming of skimming the top, but not going any deeper. And everyone just walks away with this misrepresentation of what's really happening in terms of conflicts, geopolitical events, etc., and even just who you or I are as a person. And it's like, how do we fight that? I mean, yeah, like you said, maybe transcriptions, more metadata, etc. But I'm not sure it's really ready or prepared to go that deep, or even if it wants to, or whoever's pulling the strings wants to go that deep.
No, I think AI is biased, obviously. So, and look, I've gotten in full on arguments with AI about. I've asked AI for its advice on something that I'm well versed in. I can't even remember what the conversation was off the top of my head, and it was
Huh.
wrong. And I
Yeah,
was like, no, no, you're wrong. And it was like, no, no, I'm right. I'm like, no, you're. Oh, it was arcades. It was arcade repair. Okay, so I'm like very well versed in arcade repair, and it starts telling me about Nintendo PCBs and logic boards and the serial number assignments. And I'm like, no, that's not right. Like that's wrong. Like that's wrong.
right.
And to the extent that I start doubting what I know,
That's
and then I
funny.
went off of AI and kind of went back to my old resources. And of course, I was correct, but all it's doing is it's a it's glorified Google search.
It it is. It's literally just a aggregator of info, and then it's just trying to collect it and then come up with its own some summarization of what it is. I had the same experience that you had when I was arguing with Grok, to be honest. And I won't say specifically what the argument was about, but it did have to do with a geopolitical event. And so another political commentator, by the way, people can't see this, but I'm doing air quotes, made a statement about a conflict that was going on at the time. And I pushed back on the guy because I know my history of the region. And one of his supporters used Grok to try to debunk me. So I was like, oh, really? Okay. Well, Grok's wrong. So I went down this rabbit hole with Grok, and Grok eventually got backed into a corner and admitted that I was right. I was like, what?
Yeah, no, I remember. Oh God, when I first started messing with ChatGPT, so it could have been a year and a half ago, and I was like, so who? I do the Disney live streams. And I've been doing that about
Yeah.
10 years. So I'm like, who do you think would make a good CEO, successor to Bob Iger?
Huh.
And I said, give me your top five. And one of the people that gave me was an executive, a former Google executive, but she
Really?
passed away 6 months before I hit that search.
Wow.
And it recommended her. And I said, Susan has passed away. She passed away from cancer. And AI said, my search do not show anything related to her.
That's crazy.
And it kept endorsing her. And I said, no, 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 no. It took me pushing back 3, maybe 4 times before it decided to go deeper and said, upon further research, you are correct.
Well, okay, a couple more things since we're on AI. Um, uh, One, the study or report that came out that admitted that AI right now is not reliable in terms of implementing safety features with robots. I don't know if you read that or if you saw that
No.
headline. Okay, so there,
But
what,
you had me at AI is not reliable.
right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like,
And
so
then
I'm.
I think Sam Altman also was in the news, where I think it was Sam Altman. I got to double check. I have the the report saved, but you could fact check me on this. But I believe it was Sam Altman. They just invested about 30, I think it was million or billion. Let's just say million into genetic embryo um, manipulation, basically.
Right.
Genetic coding, which I found interesting as well. The someone who's at the forefront of AI wants to get involved in manipulating the human genome. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, look. I mean, Sam Altman is a slippery character. I think most of these guys are. We talked about Elon. I think the last time we chatted,
Yeah, we did.
these guys. Not only do they not have any ethic or more ethical or moral compass,
Hmm.
I don't think they have the discipline to lead us into the future with AI. Now, Scott, who I work with, who I think just jumped in here, um, made a comment when I had him on the podcast a couple weeks ago that we may hit the bubble before we actually get where we're going, and then things
I
burst. And I'm inclined to believe that's true.
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement. I do, absolutely.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I mean, you know, the world right now is crazy. Again, I just had that conversation with Kervin Oakwen. He's an ex-army intelligence analyst, and he's actually still in the intelligence community. So, some stuff we talk about, he can't reveal, like exact things for reasons I don't really have to explain, I'm sure. But
Live right now.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
we excuse me.
What I tell you, George?
Oh, I don't know.
No. What I told you before. Anyway, go on.
Oh, I'm
I got
sorry.
interrupted. I apologize. I got to go. Continue.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
No, you're good.
So the conversation. First off, we talked about Venezuela, and I don't want to get too deep into that. I'll just say that there's a lot going on that we don't understand with that situation, and a lot of it can be a strategic move by the United States. Other things may be to, basically what Maduro's doing is to try to gain favor with the people because of they're not really aligned right now, but the government and the people there. But as far as like the Gerald Ford going over to that giant, warship, the biggest one we have, was actually rerouted there, because it was already done what was going on over in the Middle East. So it wasn't like it was a intentional move, for example, but it was something that they had to do when we start talking about China's involvement over there with the Panama Canal and their other investments that they're trying to make to control that area. And so the more we talked, it's like this operation that was just announced. And the thing about these operations that he explained from his military background was like, look, just because there's an operation announced doesn't mean we're actually doing anything. He says a lot of times they have to say that there's an operation, for example, for funding, because the military is very bureaucratic. And so this just sets things up for them to get funding for the operation, to try to get personnel in line, but it doesn't mean we're actually taking military action, even though Venezuela's taking it that way. But we did talk about, well, I kind of pushed back. I was like, well, what's going on in your mind, or what you think? Because what about what's going on with the narco terrorists, right? Why are we just blowing these people up? And we can argue about due process and all that, but the reality is, these narco organizations were designated as terrorists. So that there's a fine line there where the military can take action, or not. But at the same time, I told Curvin, I was like, and he agreed with me. It's like with all the training our military has and how proficient we are, why are we not? If this is who we know to be narcos, for example, why are we not just taking these boats over and arresting these people instead of just blasting them? I get you can take the whole anti-terrorist side, but at the same time, these operations, when it comes to narcos, from everyone I've talked to that is like ex-DEA agents and FBI, is they already know what's going on. They know the trade route. They know exactly what's happening. They know who the players are, and they don't engage. They don't engage military, for example, or Coast Guard until they know. They always work jointly. And a lot of the information and intel is based on what the DEA is providing. So these operations, these investigations are in effect. And so there's that side of it that a lot of us aren't told. But at the same time, it's like, should we be like shooting and destroying before we actually, get these people and interrogate them and find out what's really happening? It was a very interesting conversation. and it still leaves me asking questions. Let's just put it that way. And there's that possibility of like, well, are we setting ourselves up for regime change in Venezuela? Well, maybe. I'm not really sure, but it was an interesting conversation for sure. Uh, and again, I walked away with probably more questions than I have answers for. But at least I can say that everyone who thinks that there's actual military action, like of course Trump mobilizing 16,000 troops. Well, that's already part of what's going on with Southcom, or the Southern Area of Responsibility, like the commanding military position out there. It's not that we're mobilizing troops to invade. So again, I thought that was a bit eye opening. I thought I'd share that with everyone as well.
Yeah, look, I'm still of the mindset, uh, and I know there's like a broad point, but
Right.
when it comes to anything we're doing abroad, I'm looking at it and I'm going, "Where's America first?" I know
Yeah.
I didn't vote for this guy, and I'm curious how you feel, but I'm like, "Where is America first?" We're just now getting out of this government shutdown. Where
Right.
where where are our leaders prioritizing our problem? I could
Hmm.
go on about what's going on around the world. I have my opinions on how to handle terrorism. I have my opinions on us imposing regime change. But when it all comes down to it, it should all be second nature. It should all be second fiddle to taking care of the American people. And I don't know how you, as someone that supports this admin, reconcile. And it's also getting
Uh,
very noisy around. Apologies.
no, it's all right. I just feel like I'm sitting down having coffee with you at a restaurant, which is really cool. I'll be honest, man. I am not necessarily in favor of regime change, for the reason that who is next in line is not always the better option. Okay. And I think that geopolitics, a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of nuance. And I think a lot of people, not to offend anybody, by the way, I'm not offending anybody, but a lot of people are naive to how geopolitics works. It's literally about power and control. It's asserting your global position to be the leader of the world, or the authority. Now, we can disagree with everything the US does. Example, I'm with you. You've said it before. I don't believe we need to be funding as many people as we do. Like, we literally fund, I think it was last time I looked, 220 or 240 countries and territories around the entire globe. And the first thing everybody thinks about is how much money are we sending to Israel? Yes, we send them, honestly, in my opinion, too much money. But at the same time, they're
Agree.
not the only people we're funding. We're not. And so what you got to look at is from this perspective, is a lot of this funding, this aid, is a way of the United States creating inroads to relationships. And in some cases, people may disagree with this, which is fine. But the reality is, it's also where we're positioning ourselves to have leverage. Okay. So it's a dirty game. It really is. I don't agree with everything that we do whatsoever. But if we step out and create that vacuum, are we ready for China to take up the mantle? Are we ready for Putin to take up the mantle, for example?
Well,
Um,
both of those guys are standing off to the side, just waiting to pounce.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And so, anyway, that's just my opinion. And I'm not saying that I'm right. Like, my opinion is not necessarily the end all be all in that situation. But when it comes to geopolitics, it is dirty. There is a reason these things are done. And no, I don't agree with it all. As far as America first, yes, agree with you. I think for way too long we've put our interests to the side for the interests of others. But I don't believe in America only. We can't be this island nation
I
either.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. But when you sell something like that on the campaign trail,
Oh yeah. You're talking about
you
Trump.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
and then all you're doing is focusing on what's abroad. And I understand, particularly with Israel. I mean, the strategic relationship has
Right.
always been about having a foothold in the region. It's always been about oil. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Most of the
and
Middle East is absolutely about that.
I always get shredded when I say this, but it's the one thing that the right and the left in Congress support unequivocally is Israel. And I say
True.
that as a Jewish American, and I get a lot of pushback for that. But it's the truth. I'm like, you got to question the one thing that they all agree on unequivocally. And I'm not anti. I support Israel.
Right.
I support the people of the region. I don't
Yeah, well,
support the leaders of either government or any
that
of the government.
that's an important distinction, though. A lot of people don't get. It's like criticizing the nation state or government Israel is different than criticizing the Jewish people. for example.
And not everybody in Israel.
It's the same as saying everything Trump does represents every American. It just doesn't equate. It's not the same.
No, well,
So,
it does on the global stage, but that's just because that's
well, understood. But then the
That's
argument is
geopolitics.
the argument's also that Netanyahu represents all Jews.
No, he represents all Israeli people. Not everyone in Israel is Jewish. That's a huge distinction. That's a very
Just-
different. One's
I'm
a
just saying.
nationality, one's a religion. Right, but
Just saying.
that's a level of nuance. So,
Oh, understood.
So Netanyahu's actions represent, based on what you're theorizing, Netanyahu's actions represent the Israeli people, not the Jewish people. And that's where anti-Semitism gets brought to the state side here domestically, and then gets conflated with Israel's policy. But Israel is not Judaism. They are very separate.
Well, yeah, true, but as a Jew, as someone who is Jewish, you have to also admit there's only one Jewish state.
Oh, I have issues with that, but that is very separate from the reality that Israel may be a Jewish state, but the Israeli people are a mixed bag. There are Muslims, there are Christians, there are Jews. I mean, you go to Israel during Christmas, there's Christmas trees up in the mall.
Of course, and I'm not saying it's not diverse.
No, but I'm saying, but we live in a very black and white world, even though it's, let me rephrase that. People live in a very black and white world.
Yeah, it's gray.
The world is gray. And so there's a level of nuance there that doesn't get really broken down. And then I think that feeds anti-Semitism.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, look,
that's why I have a problem. That's why I have a problem with Netanyahu, by the way. I can't stand Netanyahu.
Yeah, we see it pretty much the same way, man.
Right.
I think people are conflating the government of Israel and their actions with what the people of Israel really want. And I guess that's the better way to say this. And
I think the people of Israel, I mean, I talked to Mark Schulman a couple times here on Substack. I think the people of Israel want stability in the region. I think generally speaking, that's not coming from Netanyahu. And I think most people also support the Palestinians. Most people in that region support the Palestinian people.
Are we to say then that the Israeli people? I mean, I don't think Netanyahu is after this going on. I don't know if he's going to be voted back in or continue his reign.
Well, if he does, it'll be through corruption. It won't be through anything legitimate.
True.
I mean, come on.
I agree with that. Well, yeah.
I can't stand beating Netanyahu.
I agree.
But listen, it's getting really noisy here, and I want to give you my full attention, and I feel like I'm being inundated by people. And what I was saying to you earlier, someone just came up to me and started talking to me, and I was like, I'm live right now. And she's like, oh, I don't care. I just want to talk to you. I'm like, no, I do. I'm talking to George right now.
No, it's all fine. All I hear is chatter in the background. It's okay.
Same. But look. So what I want to do, maybe even next Sunday, if you're up for it. I don't know what your schedule looks like. Maybe we sit down and can do a proper chat face to face. I feel like we get more mileage out of those chats doing it that way.
Well, I mean, there's a lot lost when you can't see people's faces and reactions, for sure.
Yes,
but that being said, I mean, look, I think this is I still like this opportunity with you. Appreciate it. But it's just that what we're talking about earlier with geopolitics, for example, AI. It's just, let's just change this a bit. It's just so crazy how the world's become. And I think a lot of what's going on too, outside of like what the governments of these nations are really doing, how the information space, this information warfare has become what it is today, and how people are led by likes, clicks, and the number of followers. And that's another conversation I had recently. And I know that you and I talked about this before a little bit, but it seems like it's been ramping up. Like, can we not attribute a lot of this, like anti-Semitism, for example, to just what's being stirred up on social media?
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and with that being said, it's like, I think a lot of people, like, look, we use social media. Everybody that's listening right now is using social media. I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. But I think a lot of people need to understand this isn't the real world, because as soon as more to the point, X, for example, that place is, I can't even, I have to step away many times because it's so convoluted with.
I'm barely on it these days. I've taken a huge break because it's just such negative energy. It's the intent behind the algorithm is so negative.
Right. Well, where I'm going with this is, when I'm getting back to these political commentators, and I'm not going to name anyone out. I do it on my show, but I won't do it on yours.
I don't name whoever you want. What do I care?
All right. Well, okay. So when we're talking about, let me just throw someone out. Let's say like Dave Smith. I don't know. I have a thing with him lately for whatever reason, but this is just for example's sake, everybody. I'm not necessarily bashing him, but this is what I'm going to tell everybody is a lot of these people think they're extremely relevant on the big stage, for example. They believe that their political reach and what they have to say is accepted and backed by everybody. When I was doing the numbers, I realized there was like 300, I think it was 346 or 42 million people in the United States. So of those people, 111 million are actually on X. So it's less than half, right? And then if you take that number and apply it to how many voter aged people there are on the USA, there's only 284 million voter aged persons. So less than half of those voter aged persons are using X. Also, only 59% of X users actually use it and engage for political reasons. So people like Dave Smith, for example, and myself too, I mean, I'll include myself, we're only actually talking to maybe 30% of the voter aged people of the United States of America.
And I mean, you're not even looking at the numbers of the disenfranchised, right? All the people that don't even vote. So yeah, you have a very small amount of loud people driving the narrative,
Exactly.
even in quote unquote alternative media.
Which is crazy. And
Oh, I agree.
I'm just hoping that one day, people will question more. And I get it because we don't have the time. Like, myself included, like we have our routines, we have everything we're doing throughout the day. And, you're busy, you're taking the kids, let's say to, soccer or whatever you're doing, right? You have all these schedules, your work, your job, and you see a headline pop up and you're like, oh, wow, that's what's happening. And you don't necessarily have the time to do a deeper dive. So I get it. I wish people would stop just taking the headline or just gleaming the surface and taking it for face value. I want to, at some point, see more people question and do their own research. I think that's another issue that we're having. Same thing that happened to me with the AI search, right?
That's exactly it. That's the problem, George, because there are two types of people. They're going to be the people that trust everything that AI says to them, and it's going to dumb them down because they're going to accept all the erroneous results as fact. And then there's the type of people that are going to understand that it's just there to optimize and that you can't just use it without fact checking it. You can't have it right for you without rereading it. You can't have it. It's a multiplier. It's not a replacement tool. So I think it's going to do great for guys like us that recognize that and are willing to do the due diligence. But I think the mass population is going to wind up getting swept up in the fact that they will no longer be able to tell what's real. And that's where
important. You know what, Royce? I just saw this pop up. Ronald, is Trumpism a cult? You know what? That's funny because I was going to actually segue a little bit with you into what you yourself have, your opinion on this whole MAGA conservative infighting is. But as far as is Trumpism a cult? I think that MAGA right now, since that's the hot topic these days. I think a lot of people are cult-like, but I don't think it's just limited to MAGA. Let me just clarify that. I mean,
but I think it transcends politics. I think it's social media as a whole.
Yeah, but when it does come to politics, there is a lot of cultism in or cult-like behavior in politics in general.
That's extremism, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer you, Ronald, I think there is a lot of that going on. I'm not going to say that there isn't. I think some people are just riding this Trump train and without question. And I will say, and I'm gonna say this, guys. I'm gonna say this. I did vote for him, and you could hate me for that. It's fine. I just didn't like the alternative. Everyone has their opinions, but it doesn't mean I'm bought in. I mean, if you ever listen to my show, if anyone does, I am critical of him too. I'm not saying everything he does makes sense whatsoever because it doesn't. Where I'm at right now is I fear is this cult-like this cult-like behavior that Ronald asked about. Is it going to continue and carry over to the next president if they happen to be Republican? A lot of people are looking at J.D. Vance. I got to be honest. I'm not sure he's going to be the guy. I think a lot of what Trump is doing is hurting J.D. Vance right now, and I don't think it's going to be able to push him.
He's got the tech money, though. If they want him, they'll get him. The question is, what's going to be the alternative? Standing across.
There is that. Yeah. There is that. You're right. Money does. I mean, it does move the world.
He's backed by Peter Thiel, so.
But is that enough to convince people? Because here's the thing: if we're looking at,
You
for
don't need to
example,
convince people, George. You know that. All you have to do is sow disinformation. We've already talked about this. I mean,
no, I know.
But this goes right back to the AI conversation. Because now when people don't know what's true anymore, they're forming their opinions off of misinformation. They were already doing that with social media. Now you add AI to it, it's going to be very very easy to manipulate elections in the future, whether we're talking about deep fakes or we're just talking about AI telling you that your candidate has this, that, and the other opinion like they did with you, and then they don't. So,
well, okay, hold on. I you are absolutely correct in that, but let me push back a little on this. It's going to be hard to weed through, as you said, the disinformation when it comes to our next election, right? But this is where I was going to go with this. If you're monitoring what's going on around the world, the Gen Z uprising right now. Okay, so there was Peru, Nepal. What's going on in Africa right now? You had the protests in Mexico. I think a lot of the younger generation are seeing past the bullshit. There's already been 2 governments overthrown by these Gen Z uprisings. Now, a lot of that has to do with resources. For example, if we're talking about Africa, their governments can't even provide running water, electricity, food. There's a lot of things going on there that cause this. Their governments are not trustworthy. In America, we don't have that disparity. All right, we're not an emergent economy or a third world, as some people say, but there's a lot of opportunity in our system that a lot of the youth feel are not there for them anymore. And even for people of my age or your age, it seems like it's getting harder and harder to push through that barrier, that wall to get to the next level. So I wonder how long it is since already in Mexico it's happening. It just happened, right? They overran the police. They overran the palace. How much longer is it going to be before the youth in America start to do the same thing? I don't know if the next election that the disinformation is going to be enough, because I think a lot of people are already seeing through the BS.
I don't know if there will be. You look at past sort of quote unquote uprisings, whether it was BLM, whether it was Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
I even point to this No Kings thing that just happened, and I go, okay, so there's really no leadership, and it doesn't correlate to getting out the vote. Okay, this whole No Kings rally, it looks good from a social media perspective, but if you can only get those people out when they're PO'd and not when it's time to vote, then it's all for naught. So where's the organization?
As far as those examples, yes, but when it comes to this Gen Z uprising, I mean, we're looking at 2 actual governments that were toppled. We're talking about physically fighting, but the government.
But they're not Americans. They're not American.
No.
American
exactly
is conditioned, and I question if the drive is there, and I question if the leadership is there. You look at Occupy Wall Street. I always point back to that. That was the most ineffective thing I've ever seen from a protest perspective.
Like, it made a lot of noise,
but it had no call to action. It had no mission,
no real direction. Yeah,
correct. So are we due for it? Yes. Are we equipped for it? I don't know.
That is the question, and that's the question I'm bringing. Also, it's like, could it? Maybe. I mean, we have seen a lot of youth a lot more vocal than they used to be. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. It's just something to keep an eye on, because it's become a global movement.
Yeah,
and they're communicating with each other through decentralized communication via social media. And again, I mean, when you also look at what's ripe with what's happening with America, you see the disenfranchised youth following Nick Fuentes, the Pied Piper of.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, driving the wedge in America.
He's a troll. He's got no substance. He's a troll.
Oh, he's a troll, big time. I don't. Damn it.
He's entertaining.
He is entertainment. And Royce, listen, man. How can these, again, like a Dave Smith guy, how can these social media political commentators or podcasters, comedians, whatever, how can they take a position of America first, looking out for those that are less than that have needs, to switching to backing Nick Fuentes, who has been a blatant racist, who admires Hitler, admires Stalin, even said it on Tucker Carlson's interview, for example, and Tucker said nothing.
Yeah.
And he has this if you read between the lines, you actually, because I actually watched a few of his episodes. I want to make this very clear. A lot of people always push back and say you're taking him out of context. Well, for the sake of not taking Nick out of context, I watched about 5 of his episodes front to back just to see how he is. Right? And the guy is literally wanting a utopian Nazi America. Like literally.
He doesn't believe what he says. I think it's just like Candace. He says whatever he wants to say to get clicks and then disrupt.
Well, true. Okay, let me say that may be
The
true.
modern day shock job.
That may be true. So at what point, if what you're saying is true, Royce, at what point, as you've discussed with me before, do we start holding these people accountable for not self-censoring or self-moderating themselves?
So that's where we get into the nitty-gritty, because I suggest that Congress is the one that needs to start regulating content. And people could say, well, do you really want to put all that power in the hands of Congress? And I say, well, the people can't regulate themselves, and the platforms aren't doing it. So it's our leaders need to legislate, and they're failing us. But I want to kind of pivot to answer Ronald's question. This is how I'm voted for Trump 3 times, and I never voted for Trump. But I can answer the question. Most people in this country feel completely disenfranchised. They feel like that they were born without any opportunity to succeed. Okay. And despite the fact that Donald Trump was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he always spoke to working class people. He always spoke unfiltered, and he was ingrained in our pop culture from the 80s forward. I mean, his name is mentioned in countless rap songs. So he was ingrained in our culture, which means people knew him. So when you put up anybody that looks less than authentic against a guy like that, people will vote for him because they see him for who he is, even if they do not like him. He brings gender. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow.
No, I mean, he knew his base, he knew his audience for sure. And that's exactly what we're seeing with people like Nick Fuentes, for example. Going back to Nick. He knows how to target people's frustrations.
He is a desperate soul.
Absolutely. He's playing the great sympathizer. I can lead you to a better way. Come on board.
And he can't because he's a turd in plain English. And I know that's not really an eloquent way of saying it, but he's a turd. And
no, he is.
George, these people around me are driving me up a wall.
Right.
Just by their presence. Between you and I, they can't hear me. There's a driver.
Are they closing in on you?
They're closing in on me, and like I don't relate to the humans generally. So there's a lot for me. There's a lot.
That's funny.
Yeah. But look, I think this is why guys like you and I should keep talking, because like I could sit here and answer Ronald's question in a way that maybe I hope will make more sense than if it comes from a guy like you who voted for him. Because some people and I'm not suggesting, Ronald, you are that person, but some people have that wall up. And I understand that people want a disruptor. I've always wanted a disruptor. Since my college days, Ralph Nader running, I was at MSG. I've always wanted a disruptor. Donald Trump had my vote at the top of the escalator, and he lost it at the bottom.
And people do want to shake things up. And the problem is we're never going to have an honest politician ever. I hope that is not the case in the future. But I got to think that people got to understand you're being lied to every day. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat, it doesn't matter if it's Republican, it doesn't matter if it's independent. Everybody's going to say what you want to hear to get the votes. Who they are is always revealed once they're in office, right? I mean, how many of our elected officials, for example, let's talk about Congress, are actually doing what you voted them in to do? Are they really representing you?
None of them. They're all, listen, and the clown show is Congress, okay? You can look at the executive branch. The consistent failure in our country is and will always be Congress. These are the guys that have been there forever. The Schumers, the Pelosi's, the McConnells. So
yes.
I don't really buy into, because with proper checks and balances, then you wouldn't have to constantly, you wouldn't have to constantly point the finger at the admin. With proper checks and balances, they'd be able to check the admin, and then you wouldn't have to deal with some of this nonsense. But what Trump is doing so effectively is moving so fast. He knows that they're not pushing back. Courts aren't pushing back quick enough. The system's too slow. And he learned that from Roy Cohn. Okay, so what he's doing is pushing as much out there onto the system as possible, and essentially overloading it. And that's, I don't even, where are we at with the tariffs, George? We're supposed to pay none of that.
I don't know what's happening with that. Look,
I'm watching him
Okay,
swirling a nut. I think he should run for office.
here's
I'm serious. I mean, this guy looks like a leader.
we were a tariff nation at one point in our history. But here's my thing with tariffs. Um, they're not going away. The absurdity of how they're being used as a weapon is the problem. So we're
But
always
what
going to
happens if we have to hand all that money back?
well, exactly.
Doesn't that bankrupt up like a Trump casino?
Trump is-
I'm asking.
well, no. Look, let me just say this here. Tariffs
With
aren't
the
going
Taj
away.
Mahal, Americans with Taj Mahal now.
Are we? Tariffs are the way tariffs were the way Trump was. Okay, this is how it was explained in the beginning that Trump was supposed to use this. Right? It was just supposed to be leverage, a way to renegotiate and make things more even. But he got away from that. He never stuck to that plan, and now he's just using it as a weapon to get other people to bend. But I mean, it's proven that other countries are not necessarily going to bend the knee to Trump.
So are you
So
surprised? Are you surprised that instead of using it strategically, he's using it like a one tool?
no, I'm not. I'm not that surprised whatsoever. But what Trump is doing, what he doesn't realize is like tariffs are a road to isolationism, and you can't isolate America because the economy is global. It's been global for many, many years. We
Right.
can't get away from this global economy. We're too
And
dependent.
you can't manufacture your way out of it at this point.
No,
Too far
exactly.
gone.
I was literally just going to say that. Um, we're too dependent on other nations for their expertise, for the resources. We don't have it all in our own backyard. It's just not going to happen. We have to work with everybody. Period.
Right, but here's the problem. China takes all of our business, all of our manufacturing business, right? And not only do they take that business, but then they turn around and they steal the intellectual property from the people they're doing business with, and then they create
Yes, they do.
they create clones and they overflood the marketplace. So we have to figure out that dance. I've had enough conversations now doing this with people where I used to think, oh, we're at war with China and we got to win the war. And I've kind of been talked off that ledge by having these types of conversations. I will admit that. And I think that we just need to dance better with them. But I think we need to be more aggressive.
Well, we can't ignore China's economic prowess in the world whatsoever. But we also got to realize that China is not Western culture. They don't see it the way we do.
Correct.
And these companies are like, well, we have patents on this. They shouldn't be stealing. We're going to sue them. Well, good luck. China doesn't have to comply.
Correct.
How are you going to force another nation to comply? It's not going to happen. I was privy to this a long time ago because I'm in the events industry, right? So I literally provide staging, lighting, sound. I do the whole concert thing. I do corporate events. I do arena tours. And in my particular industry, we're talking about lighting. And we'll talk about brands like Martin, Elation, Chauvet. If anyone who's listening knows what I'm talking about.
I love Chauvet.
Yeah, they've been battling this for years. And where they'll come up with a certain design, certain technology, and they have these plants in China, and then all of a sudden you see these clones, and we see other people using these clones out there of these lighting. So they're trying to meet what's called a tour writer. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically an artist sends you a writer, and a part of that's a tech writer. So what will happen is they'll say, well, for an artist to perform, I need this console brand, for example, which is like a mixing board. All right. I need this type of lighting in the grid because my guy designed the lighting based on these fixtures. And so what happened is you started seeing people buying these knockoffs and trying to push them off as the actual brand. It's been going on for many years. And then you go to use them and the profiles don't match. Like there's always something off. So when this started happening, people like Chauvet and Martin, for example, are losing money. They're trying to push back. And the same thing happened with, let's just talk about cell phones with Apple, right? With any cell phone that is Android based. And this has been going on a long time. I think it's just coming to light now because of the tariff situation where people are paying more attention. But this is something China's always done. This isn't new. This is not new news, for example. I think people just never really realized it was happening.
No, I know. I remember dealing with this with Pangolin lasers and the dongles. And you could get the unofficial dongles. So you need like a certain license for a laser.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, this is a safety issue that now our market's being flooded with like fake laser authentication and fake certification and all this. So I remember that with the dongles. They're like the $400 dongles. You can get them cheaper. And now you didn't have official certification to use the laser, but you had the Chinese certification. And a lot of people were coasting off of that, which was It's a safety issue because if somebody in that crowd gets hit in the eye with a laser, they'll get blinded.
Right. Absolutely.
But
You have to regulate that. Absolutely.
but that's these are the real issues that nobody talks about with knockoff products, especially in the tech sphere.
Well, the
I don't know how to deal with that.
you can't deal with it. That's the reality. We can't police China and tell them you can't produce this or produce that. The only way we can regulate it is, let's say, in the United States, for example, when we were talking about quality and safety, that has to be stopped when those goods are coming in. They have to be. I think what needs to happen is some of these goods need to come in, be inspected for safety, and verify that they're safe for operation before they're actually accepted and then flooded into our market. But you can't also stop the black market either.
Right.
So, can we get ahead of it? I think we could do a lot if we're actually taking those products. If there was another office set up here to QC these products that are coming in that are supposed to be regulated.
That requires legislation, and that requires Congress to do their job. And I know I'm a broken record with that.
No, you're not.
It all starts there, man.
You're not a broken record.
All these ideas are fantastic, but without effective leadership, we don't get it. And now we're dying on the vine with AI. We're dying on the vine with content moderation. We bypass net neutrality.
Yep.
You know.
Well, let's talk about Congress again. So Congress, I did a deep dive. I forgot which episode I did. So, and if anyone hears me, I may be off on some of my recall, to be quite honest. It's been a while. But Congress, if you look at Congress historically, it was supposed to be a service, right? Sometime around and it was never supposed to be a long-term career whatsoever. So sometime around, I think it was the late 60s, early 70s, I believe. I gotta go back, but somewhere around that period is when Congress actually voted to instill and up their salary. And I think at that point, it was either bumped to about 60 to 70 something $1,000 a year, something like that. Ever since then, they have voted to up their salary and their benefits. Right now, we're at what, 175 or 170 something thousand a year is the salary for Congress. And it was never supposed to be a career. And now we see these people serving long term. I mean, they get in their 30s or 40s, and they go until they either medically incapable to serve or basically have to be forced out. So, the way we fix this is we got to really instill term limits, regardless. I think.
Yeah, but who's going to lead that charge? I mean, you're really going to need. I hate to say it, you're going to need a tyrannical, executive officer to come in and do that. And then people are going to call him a dictator and all these things, but it's going to take a little tyranny to reboot the system.
So, but here's the thing, though. Do the people not have a responsibility? Do we not care enough to hold our government accountable? Because we really don't do that. We're too busy going.
But most of the country doesn't show up to vote.
Exactly.
So if we really wanted to use technology as a weapon, we could organize effectively, and we can vote all of these guys out. But the willpower has to be there. And I think part of the problem, George, is most people are stuck trying to get by every damn week, every damn day.
That's exactly the truth.
Trying to worry about these things, so they get stuck in the system. They get stuck in their 9-to-5 job, the recursive loop, the medical system, trying to afford their kids an education. All of these things, and there's no time to worry about government. Well, I guess worrying about government would solve their problems. But when they see it's broken, they become disenfranchised and they just kind of.
Very true. And I guess we could blame Henry Ford for the 5-day work week. But the thing is what you're saying is exactly what I believe and what I say. You know, people are too busy. They keep their heads down. It's not necessarily their fault. We've created this society to where we become overwhelmed and feel the pressure to be involved in all this crap that in the grand scheme of things means nothing. We're not paying attention to our government. We're not holding them accountable whatsoever. If we did, there would be the change that you're talking about. Do we need a dictator to make that work? Yeah. I think two things could be true.
A tyrant.
Okay, a tyrant.
The problem is people call that a dictator.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misheard you. But more than one thing could be true at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Congress needs to be overhauled. I believe you're correct. Needs to be overhauled. We need term limits. You shouldn't be able to serve till you're 80. Like, look, 65, whatever the retirement age. I mean, I get them out. I think at some point,
You want to know how
you
you get them
know,
out? Take away their paychecks. If it's a volunteer position,
absolutely.
they're old.
And that could be one way to put the squeeze on them, right? If you're going to close down, you don't get paid. If you're not showing up to work, you don't get paid. I mean, it's like us. If we have a full-time job, you have so much vacation pay, so much sick time, whatever the hell it is. You don't get to bleed the system dry and the taxpayers dry by continuing to make your exorbitant salaries because you choose to not go to work.
But that's the 1%. And you're only going to change it by storming the Bastille. And I know that's controversial, especially after, what has gone on in the last few years.
But absolutely.
It's the truth, man. You got to be a disruptor. And I don't support this guy. You know that. But I understand why people do it.
No, I get it.
I like it. It doesn't mean I like it. But I can, as somebody that stands in the middle consistently, I can look at it and I can understand it. And I just wish that there were better options on the table. Because I think if you go back to that 2016 election, and you look at Kasich, and you look at Cruz, and you look at Rubio, and you realize that the only reason Trump won is because none of those guys would check their ego, and he won by a margin, a slim margin. You realize that people didn't vote for Trump. Okay, they voted for themselves.
Good point.
I want to wrap this up, though, if you don't mind. And let's
no. All good.
No, I agree. Disruption is fine. Disruption. Listen, that's the nuance of it all. Disruption is fine, not violence. Disruption.
Yeah, we do have to shake stuff up for sure. Well, I mean, if you want to wrap this up, I'm fine with that. I'm mostly through my cigar right now. I took the opportunity to sit outside since we're doing audio only, so didn't want to wake my wife up either. So
Fair,
to be courteous.
I'm having a hard time focusing, to be honest with you. It's getting
no worries, man. Listen, do what you got to do. Yeah. No, do what you got to do. I'd be happy to come back any other time. And at the same time, I would love to have you back on my show too. I think there's a lot that we can catch up on, discuss for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he just scratched the surface too. So, George, thank you. And let's again, I don't know. I don't even think we have anybody next Sunday. So if you want to do another one, or you want to wait a week or two, you let me know.
Oh no, I'm gamed. Do me a favor, just reach back out. Have Kiana reach back out to me, and I'll see if I can make that happen.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Royce. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. George Fontes, World Ablaze.
All right, bye, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.